Good afternoon. My name is Bongani. Today, we're at the home of Pathisa Nyathi. We're going to discuss his life outside the arts. Who is he? What makes him tick? What makes him jump for joy? So, I hope we have a good discussion with him. Sanibonani baba.
Yebo.
Njani?
Hayi iphilile.
Thank you for bringing us and inviting us to your home. My first question to you is just tell us about Pathisa Nyathi. Where did he grow up? When was he born and all that?
Okay, Pathisa Nyathi is a historical name. Historical in the sense that in our culture you don't just pick up a name from a basket with very little meaning. In our culture, names have a meaning, they have a context. Sometimes they carry wishes, they carry prayers. In my case, Pathisa meant we are just following others. We are not very certain if this venture is going to succeed. What venture was that? My mother used to be scary. So they come to a point where they no longer were certain they were going to have children with my father. That's the origin. So I see a Pathisa nje abanye. Sisiyahamba, but not very sure if this child is going to survive. But today I'm celebrating 70 years being a resident on planet Earth. So it means the child survived where others failed to make it. That's what is special perhaps about me and my name. So I became Pathisa that way for that reason, and so born within a context of spirituality, because when conception failed, my father approached a religious shrine, a spiritual shrine, which is in Jelele, in the Matopo Hills. What used to happen back then, and I want to believe it still happens today, I took some people there some few days ago. And so they were told, yeah, people come here requesting for this and that. Some to say, if I could get a husband, please. Others, no, I want a baby, I don't have a baby. And then the lady there, Manyati, was telling them, yeah, when you get the baby, you come back and inform them that, yes, my request was fulfilled. So I don't know whether my father went back to say, yes, that baby we asked for was, we got. But anyway, the bottom line is that I'm here, a product from God, let me say, as a request from God, that where others had failed, I succeeded. So Nyathi then is the, I don't want to call it totemic side of things, because when it's a totem, you taboo the animal that you take the totem after. So Nyathi would mean we don't consume meat from a buffalo, but we also take the buffalo to be a brother to a cow. So it means we wouldn't be eating beef, but we do eat beef. So, and in actual fact, our totem is the dove. That's the bird we don't touch. We taboo that one. When our women, our mothers are suckling Nyathi babies, they don't consume meat from that bird. It's a special bird to us. And so we don't touch it. So already from the name, which is very circumstantial, historical, we also have the totemic name, which is your kind of spiritual DNA. That's very important. So it's a lot of history in that is embedded in those two names, the name and the surname. But of course we need to point out that we didn't have surnames as such in the past. At some point it was Mzilikazi Kamachobani, we didn't say Mzilikazi Kumalo. Somebody says it was only when they wanted to text people that they introduced these surnames. Do we know, there's Queen Elizabeth VI. Do we know her surname? Somebody says powerful people don't have surnames. King George VI, what was his surname? We don't know. So it's Pathisa Nyathi. When they want text from me, then it's easy to do that. So it becomes a colonial feature. And I think they are correct. We didn't have these surnames. Yeah, then I grew up at Sankonjana. The place is called Sankonjana. This is where hopefully the 70th birthday celebrations will be conducted, will be held sometime in September. I was born in winter and I hate the winter conditions. So we will have to celebrate a belated celebration sometime in September. And at the same time, things are coming together for some unknown reason, as if I'm preparing my final exit. Turning 70, and then I am busy writing my autobiography, which I thought initially was going to be largely pictorial or photographic, because I always feared that I had no memory. And so I wasn't going to come up with something meaningful, something sustainable, something objective, something really containing much worthwhile information. But the moment I started sitting behind my laptop and writing, I discovered, oh, there are lots of things that I do remember. Perhaps I remember better when I start working, start writing. But just to remember for no purpose, I think that's where I faced the challenge. So I accumulated, I think, hundreds of pictures over some years. Right from 1960, my brother, the oldest, my father was a polygamist. He had 2 wives. Okay. He would have had 3, but the second one, number 2, who was a Manyati. Among the Nyathi people, we do intermarry. A Nyathi can marry a Nyathi. It's not a big issue. As long as your totem, not totems, but your houses are different. So we are Nyathi, but we are known as Rumula people or Lupate people. Then you have others who are Kubatu people, you have others who are Likiko people, you have others who are Maunatala people, it goes on like that. So there is intermarriage within the Nyathi group. But of course there are economic dimensions to it, keeping cattle within the same group. So that my son marries my sister's daughter. That's how. These are what they call preferred cousin marriages in Sutu culture. So we practice a lot of that, and it's a way of preserving cattle. Make sure cattle don't go out as lopola, but it's paid within the Nyathi group, so we retain our wealth. It's a social measure with an economic bearing. Okay. That's how I would put it. So awards have been coming one after the other, and well, I'm sure you know I was chosen as one of the 40 legends in Zimbabwe for the arts, culture and heritage in 2021. And then I think it was a few days after that, the Britain-Zimbabwe Society decided they were, for the first time, going to create a special award, which they called a Lifetime Achievement Award. And in the past, yes, they had awards which were won by 2 youthful people in writing. But for the first time this year, they went for something which was cultural, and so it was inaugural. And I became the first recipient. So that was something really worth celebrating. So it's the book, Turning 70, and then these awards it all comes together, and to a point where you say, but even if the angels summon me or my ancestors summon me, I think I wouldn't say it was a premature departure from planet Earth. It's as if everything has come together, well organized, synchronized, and concluded in a very beautiful way. Of course, I'm aware that my life cannot be separated from arts, culture, and heritage. From the name itself, from the surname itself, there is history, there is culture, there is spirituality. It's all together. So my life, and the book, by the way, which I am working on right now, is Pathisa Nyathi at 70, a life dedicated to arts, culture, and heritage. That's a working title. It may come out different, but for now, that is the working title for the book. Again, giving emphasis to arts, culture, and heritage. And it was an area in which I had to make a choice, because I could have become participated in any other heritage or arts genre. So I chose heritage, documentation of heritage through writing, because you can document heritage in more ways than one. So instead of becoming a jack of all trades and master of none, I thought I would want to be a master in one area, and that area was African thought within African heritage. Not only dealing with Ndebele heritage. I think the level at which I operate is Pan-African, so that somebody in West Africa understands me. What is it in common? As I often say, we are not Africans because we are black. This color doesn't have any bearing to who we are at all. You could be white, and there's no white person, by the way, and there's no black person. It's people who, for selfish reasons, want to confuse things. They are black, they are white. There are no such things. So it is the culture, it is that worldview which is common to all of us which matters. And that is what distinguishes us from all other people in the world and brings us together, West Africans. But the tragedy in Africa today is we are not coordinated. We are not synchronized. West Africans see themselves and as if they are the only Africans on this planet. We do the same. We don't link up and share information, to share our histories, to share our origins, to share our worldviews. We are not doing that. Some have become very Anglophone, others are very Francophone, which divides us, and then we fail to see the commonalities, the cement that brings us together as Africans. So that's the level at which I find comfort and solace. It brings us together instead of separating us, which is a strategy, divide and rule, and then you exploit the Africans. But the Africans are not helping the situation by thinking they are different. Oh, these come from South Africa or Southern Africa. These others Central African, or they're coming from West Africa. Yeah, it's okay. That's where we are geographically. But I think it's more important to appreciate our common heritage, our common past, that which links us as Africans. Yes, black in color, but not very important that we are black.
Okay. So I've heard you speak so passionately about the arts and culture and heritage. When you were growing up, when you were in primary school, or when did you envisage anything that you'll be doing this at your age or for all these years?
No, I think it was whilst at home. It was too early to. This is why I quarrel people with some author who says Mzilikazi and then says path of blood, Mzilawekazi, path of blood, which is nonsensical. When Mzilikazi was born, nobody knew he was going to become a king, powerful king. Nobody knew he was going to leave South Africa, lead a group of people, create a new nation. Perhaps there was spilling of blood. Yes, there was. There's no doubt about that. But his father, Machobana, would not have foreseen that. So I think it was the same. My father would not have foreseen what I was going to, my role going to be in the arts, culture, and heritage. My mother, similarly, would not have foreseen. So when you give a name, sometimes, yes, it's a prayer. You wish the child would become this or that, but it's only a wish. And then perhaps when they are grown up, that's when you see, oh yes, my prayers were answered. So growing up at Sankonjana, I don't think, but there are certain traits, if you are careful, that you can pick out from a child. That there's a bit of some indications, something that indicates that they have something. That is the knowledge which we are losing out now. In the past, you could just sit, watch your child, and see a future in that child. But I think that these are capacities, abilities that we have lost. What I do remember is that I wanted to associate more with adults than people of my age. That, I think in itself, tells you what kind of a child that was, an adult, what sort of adult that one would be. Because if you have your let's call them siblings, there is very little that you are going to learn from them. Yes, you learn something. In the book that I'm writing, I realize one brother who I interacted with. I look at my history, my early life, my story through him for many reasons. I'm writing a book that is not planned. I think this is one thing that I observe with me. If I sit down and do a framework of what I want to write, I can't write. I want to write from my heart. Unplanned. So as I was writing, I began to see that my life, I think, revolved around interaction with this brother who is late now.
What's his name? Sorry.
Rani. The reason is clear. The people, my siblings who came after me, all of them, 4, were women. Then in his case, the one sibling who came after him was also a woman. Then we had 2 brothers much older than us. One born 1959, our parents' firstborn. The second one born 1942. So it meant we could not interact with the elder siblings. And in any case, they'd moved away to schools. We belong to the Salvation Army. We belong to the Salvation Army. So the Salvation Army, remember the church organizations were carrying out their own partition of, not of Africa, but of Zimbabwe and other African countries. So they were carving areas and working out modalities of avoiding conflict amongst themselves. So you would find in our area is the Salvation Army, and then neighboring to the north of us is the Brethren in Christ Church. To the west you may find there's a little bit of the Catholic Church. To the east it was the Lutherans, the London Missionary Society, and to the south there was the Seventh-day Adventist Church. So we were at the center where we were. So it was the Salvation Army. And the Salvation Army arrived soon after conquest in 1890. That's Mashonaland, conquest of Mashonaland. So they established themselves at Mazowe Pearson Farm soon after 1890. And then what it meant is after primary school education at Sankonjana, we would move to secondary schools in Mashonaland, Mazowe in particular for boys. Yes, for girls, they went to Asha Institute, which was in Matebeleland, is in Matebeleland. So the brothers were flying away to schools, which, as I write now, giving my back to Sankonjana, what I see is a break with the past. It becomes a physical departure, but at the same time, it becomes symbolic and metaphorical. You are moving away, kind of, there is that de-linking that is taking place, breaking with the past. But because the other siblings are female, there was that demarcation. We belonged to different spheres. Even within a homestead, you're going to find there are sides for girls and women. There are sides for boys and males, adult males. That separation, I still remember when I was writing one of my several books, I said, apart in life and apart in death. So we were separated. In the morning when we get up, women go in their own direction, we go in our own to relieve ourselves. It was like that. So for women, they were going to the rear of the homestead as if softening the ground where they were going to be buried. And us going to the front where the wealth was, cattle, and where spiritual power was, the cattle kraal, the cattle buyer is the spiritual center within the home. So men controlled, as I often say, they controlled the spirituality of the home, they also controlled the economy. And among the Ndebele, that area was both taboo and out of bounds to women. So this is how women, men in the Ndebele state were elbowing out women out of spirituality, which was a source of power, political power and also economic power, and then removing them from the cattle buyer, which was a source of wealth. So for me then, growing up at Sankonjana becomes, only now I see it as a kind of that break. You are implementing that break with the past and embracing a new culture, starting at school. But I was saying, as I write, I look at the role of my mothers, who were professed Christians belonging to the Salvation Army, but at no time would they say they do not participate in some of our traditional rituals. They did. And I don't think it created any conflict in them. That was a role they would play, well, for all time until they departed from this planet. So we were at crossroads. We were at the crossroads. We were receiving Western education. We were receiving Western religion. We were receiving Western attire. We were receiving a Western language. So education becomes a departure, a break with our past, a break with our ancestors. But it was also giving us some insight into what our past was like. It provided us with a bit of the philosophy, with the worldview, with the beliefs of our ancestors. And I would later go and draw from these. Not so much the cultural practices, but more regarding what informed those practices, the worldview that underpinned those practices. Because practice is influenced, is driven, is underpinned by something which is philosophical, something intangible, something we can't see. It's a belief. We act as we believe, as I've expressed it elsewhere. So these are, you see, the more you engage in cognitive work you receive more insights. You begin to see linkages that you had not seen before. You begin to see relatedness, relationships that you were not aware of. And this is one thing that I think gives wisdom to adults. Those who have lived on earth longer get exposed to these experiences. And as a result, they will understand the world better than a young fellow just born. You are yet to experience life. You are yet to experience these relationships which come with age, which come with time. But of course, age and time are related. So I begin to see relationships that I'd never seen, not even last year. But as I began writing, I began to see Esankonjana, which was now a physical place. That's what I'd always known. But also a symbolic Sankonjana, which was something new, something that I was seeing only now when I started writing. So it was saying kind of, yeah, moving away. Things were beginning to fall apart, as Chinua Achebe would put it. The center could not hold. Sankonjana is becoming, shall we call it, a fuzzy picture out there in the horizon. We are all about to fly. So, but we are flying to some destination which was not our own. It's a destination, and I'm talking about, in this book, I'm talking about investment. Investment is that process of colonization. It was so cleverly done in such a manner that we, the Africans, would continue in the absence of the white man. Even when we fought for and received independence, it was independence which to me was very void. Very void in the sense that there were no linkages. There were no connections. We were still delinked from our past. And if anything, we were shying from that past. We shied from we tried to avoid it, shun it. You look at these young families, very excited. Husband and wife, both are Ndebele speakers. They speak to their children in English. Then you say, but yeah, the African, this African, something funny about them. What are you trying to prove? Do you imagine a young white couple in England speaking to their child in Ndebele? They will never do that. But why are doing it? So we lack that confidence in ourselves. Why, how, and why was it done? Is that investment. They invested in such a clever way, such a sustainable way, that that investment is yielding fruit, is yielding results, is yielding profits. And these are being supported by the blacks themselves. That investment, they called it colonization, but it was an investment. Very, very sustainable. And today, we are perpetuating that investment, and it goes on forever and ever. And so, I look at Sankonjana as that loss, an investment that succeeded. It was not our investment, other people's investment. Now, we pushed them out, but we did not push them out of our minds. That's where the investment lies today. And to me, it looks like it may take a lot of time, a lot of thinking, and if that investment is going to stop, it will not be stopped by politicians. I think politicians were quite happy getting into the shoes of the white men. This is what they did. We need a different sort of cadre in Africa to push a new agenda. But the problem is politicians have monopolized leadership. They see themselves as the almighty leadership controlling the entire lives, our entire lives. If we do that, Africa is not going to escape from bondage. Our bondage is not only political. I mean, we are free politically, but have we changed? We are still we are still products of investment, unwise investment, wise from those who are investing, and it's us who are perpetuating that investment. That's how I'm looking at things, and this is the thrust in my book, which I thought, as I said, was going to be largely pictorial because I'd misjudged myself. I thought I had no memory, only to discover there was a lot of it.
Okay.
Yeah.
I just want to find out maybe your philosophy in terms of parenting. What did you learn from your parents, and how did you impart that to your children?
I was tempted to laugh. Yeah, I'm talking of a family that has 2 wives. My father had 2 wives. Well, in those times, it was the mark of a man to have several wives. But then we were told now, as part of that investment, that 1 man, 1 wife. But those are the same people who tell us about the Bible, and the people in the Bible have several wives, several like Africans. And actually the biblical world is an African world, by the way. And so I think one thing, the one trait that I glean from the parents is hard work. My father worked very hard. Reminds me of a friend of mine, Tiiwe Kumalo, who is in Britain. She said, you know the way she speaks, you overworking. But well, I say to her, we came to this world to work, not to lazy around. It's important, if we are going to make an impact on this planet, we have to work. There's just no alternative. I saw the words in this book that I'm working on, laborare est orare. I think if they taught me well, it means to work is to pray. And praying is very important. That mental engagement, that spiritual engagement is what keeps us going. You should always have something that you look forward to. The moment you have nothing to look forward to, you go 6 feet under. You can't justify your life. I've said, if there are purveyors of death, angels of death, if they get to your house and they find, oh, the young man is very busy, they will say, okay, let's give him a chance. He will come next time. So that's extension of life. Next time they come, they find you in the small hours of the morning. You are still busy working, which is what I do. I write. I don't write during daytime. I write at night. During the day, when you arrived here, I was busy writing. And I'll be writing until 12 or midnight, 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock, if need be. It's in me. I inherited that from the parents. And so, shall we call it the work ethos? Not to work because you are being forced. Because a wheelbarrow can be pushed, can move only as far as it is pushed. You don't want people like that. The moment we have people like that in a country, in a nation, it's a doomed nation. That nation will not go very far. You want people who love to work, who find joy, who find life, who find solace, who find comfort and meaning in working. And I've always said, I look at names that don't go away. I've said, look at the names, Ligazi. That name will always be there for all time. Jaga, yes, that name will be there for all time. Why? It's because these are people who worked. Some people will have names that disappear the moment they die. And Africans, by the way, say, we do not die, we return. That's our philosophy. There comes a time, we come to Earth, planet Earth, then there comes a time when we return, but justify why you came. That's important, to give an account of why you came. I wouldn't want to get to that place, never mind what they call it, and then I fail to account for my stay, ephemeral as it is, which is our African philosophy. Life on earth is ephemeral. It is transient. The more permanent life is when we reach that important stage in our lives, ongoing lives, which is death. Death is but the beginning of longer life. That's African philosophy, which I enjoy a lot. So from parents, I think is being upright, you are truthful, hardworking, giving an account. Don't work because you are being forced to work. Do it even where there is no supervision. I don't think I like to be supervised. My conscience is my greatest supervisor and my greatest policeman. I remember saying in the past, there is no force greater than one's own conscience. You may have a police force, the army, and all those coercive forces, but they cannot be more effective and more efficient than your own conscience. If I don't steal, it is not fear of the police. It is obedience to my heart. It is obedience and loyalty to my conscience. And that is what matters. So that's what I learned. And this is what I would say we impart to our children. That we work not because somebody comes with a shambok. Because one day they will not be in a position to have the shambok. They don't have the energy to enforce. Then things will begin to fall apart. So you want sustainable ways of carrying on with life. We are not going to have our parents all the time. There comes a time, individuals, another saying which I created, individuals perish, humanity is forever. My parents are no longer there. Here I am. I don't know how many more years I'm on this planet. I will go. But in this house, there will always be people. That is what I mean by that. And that comes, it's part of that powerful African philosophy. How are we achieving that? Rock achieves it through solidity, resistance to weathering. But for us, it is through sexuality. And this is why you are going to find our African culture, our African thought, our philosophy. There is a lot that is to do with sexuality, the desire to sustain or ensure there is this continuity, not of an individual, but of humanity. As human beings, as individuals, we perish. There's no doubt about that. 80 years, if you are lucky to get there. Some of us may not get to that, but others will go beyond 100 years. But as human beings, as humanity, we are forever. And the way that is achieved is only one, through sexuality. So you look at, these days I'm working on Stonehenge in England, an iconic world cultural site in England. I'm enjoying it because I see the African mind in Stonehenge. which I'm not saying the African built Stonehenge. No, I'm not saying that. I'm saying the ancients shared a common view of the world. For example, they unearthed what was clearly a phallus. Phallus means the sexual organs, 2 balls and the cylinder. But that's what we have at Great Zimbabwe. So how does it happen that at Great Zimbabwe you find a built stone phallus, and they have resurrected that phallus at the Robert Mugabe International Airport? And at one time I was saying, Zimbabwe is saying, through this phallus, welcome to Zimbabwe, and you are being welcomed by a male sex organ. yeah. But they don't see it, of course. They don't see it.
You have spoken a lot about sexuality and spirituality in Africa, in our African culture. And most of the time when people visit Amagugu, you give lectures about how the cosmos works. If you could briefly tell us how you came to discover that and how you linked it with your life and to your research.
Yeah, what will also become very apparent in the book that I'm working on is the spiritual side of things. Somebody I was reading the other day, he says ultimately everything translates to spirituality, even the material things. Spirituality allows you to see what some people may not see. That is a characteristic of spirituality, and you don't talk about spirituality in the absence of spirit. You can begin to talk about spirit when you believe in what we term duality of being, by which we mean you look at a human being, you see 2 components, the transient, ephemeral, human and material body on the one hand, and an eternal, immortal, enduring spirit, these 2. It is the spirit that lives on and on. It is that spirit which has or is possessed of the power, the capacity to scan the past. I don't have to have lived in the past. Through spirituality, I'm able to scan that past. It comes to me, and I have said in my writings, that which is archived spiritually is and must of necessity be retrieved spiritually. So in Africa, when now we de-emphasize spirituality, whereas our past was archived spiritually, it means Africa is not going to access her past. There is no way Africa will access her past, which was archived spiritually, and in their scholarship and methodologies now, they despise everything spiritual. They will not. They may not be seeing it. Our past is accessed in the way it was archived. And that was spiritual. But you need that spirituality, therefore, to scan the past, scan the present, and scan the future. I will always give one example. 2004, I said, Robert Mugabe, the president of Zimbabwe, would be stopped on his tracks by the army. It's well known. It's there in the papers. I said it. Not because I was clever, no, but because my spirits had told me. And I said, let me say, they said, it was me saying, but it's them speaking through me. I said, when that happens, Emerson Mnangagwa will take off. It's well known. But I'm only giving you one which is in the political domain because, as I said, we have given too much emphasis to politics. There are other things that we are aware of. And when you become spiritual, you have to learn to be secretive. You cannot be a spiritual person's you don't. It doesn't work like that. This is why it has to come to you when you are mature, not a young baby, or you are still excitable. Because we know what is happening in this country. We know where this country is going. But you are mature enough and responsible enough not to go wah, trying to please this one. We don't. So that's important. So for us, when you look at the cosmos, I look at the cosmos, I see things that some people may not see. It's not about having. You are not born, conceived with the gift. Spirituality is a gift which is given at the time of conception. Your future is decided at that point. Who you are going to become, what you are going to become, your fate is decided at that point. So we believe. So I look at the whole universe and I understand it in a way that perhaps some people may not appreciate. As Africans, we used to say, we are no longer saying it now because of investment. The way I have used the term investment. We no longer see that the universe carries our fate. Our destiny is already there. It's written. We look at the stars. We see our future. It's there. But now, you look at Africa, then our knowledge of astronomy has vastly deteriorated. We know very little now. To a point, again going back to Makumalo, my good friend, she will say, then what happened? Then I remember another colleague, a former US ambassador, I think he was a Mr. Thomas or something like that. He says, at what point was the African stupefied? Because we talked a lot about this, that there was a time when an African could open up the brain through surgery. What happened? When you look at the pyramids, they didn't start in Egypt. Although it was, of course, the African who was in Egypt. They start down in the area of Nubia, Sudan. Then there was expansion, extension, and development of the idea. An idea starts small. Then it expands, grows, and develops, which is diversification. And the world was watching, and the world was clever. They came to Africa to learn. People like Pythagoras. We do Pythagoras' theorem in geometry. He came to Africa to learn. The center of wisdom, the center of knowledge, the center of alchemy, the center of mathematics, the center of science was Africa. Then when was Africa stupefied? Somebody could ask. So when we look at the cosmos, we have that adage. I think it is Dr. Mutsecha, one time a minister in South Africa. Yeah, we share a lot in common in terms of spirituality, African spirituality. He said, well, in his book, that's where I saw this, as above, so below. When you look at Africans, you see a lot of wanting to copy, to replicate the heavens on earth. Our cultural practices are calculated at capturing the universe. For example, you are going to see that our architecture and virtually the way our built environment is constructed, it's in circles, secular design. It's very important. All our artifacts were secular in design. our homes, the architecture, our huts, the roof, the cylinder, the roof and the floors, everything was secular. Africa did not invent secularity. Africa merely observed the heavens. And remember, and the mistake, of course, that we make is always to think we are the only human beings in the universe. That I will never buy. It couldn't have been the earth, Mother Earth, which had conditions of life. I don't believe that. There was a time when, and again, all this is part of spiritual inquiry. Physics derives from spirituality. I was at Oxford one time, Oxford the town, and then of course it's a university town. Then I was reading, say yes, physics grew out of spirituality. Of course at that time perhaps I didn't appreciate what they meant. But now I see spirituality, physics, science, religion, all of them as inquiries into the origins of man, as inquiries into the fate of men. All of them are involved with that. We want to know where we came from. We want to understand where we are. Some people will use science. Others will use spirituality. We can use different forms, but that inquiring mind is in us. So as above, so below. We want to create heaven on earth. So even the way we do our dances, when you look at our dances, you see the heavens. You will see this secularity. You will see movement, not just haphazard movement, but periodic movement, rhythmic movement. This periodicity is a universal characteristic. Day, night. Day, night. When we walk left, right, then there's a time when it's very cold. Like now it's cold. We know very soon it will get hot. So hot, cold, hot, cold. The law of opposites come to control us. This is what you observe. But when you are spiritual, you observe more than the other fellow who is more material. Material does not see much. What sees in us, what sees is not us, the material component. It is the spirit in us. That has power to see. Okay. And Africans were not stupid to place a lot of emphasis on spirituality. They realized they needed it for survival. But science, the way they are using it, which is sometimes misguided and ill-informed, they think we can do away with spirituality. But wait, you will see one day when things will just fall apart. They will remember the African was right. Unfortunately, because of this investment, the African doesn't even believe. I think the khuluma izinto zeneza mahari zikalamsebenzi. But bazambona ukuthi umuntu omnyama wayekhatshana kakhulu. Bazamkholwa isikhathi sesedlule.
Maybe as a parting shot, what do you want people to remember you for? Maybe people in general, like us, and maybe your children, your grandchildren. What do you want them to remember you for?
Yeah, I think it's deriving joy out of your being. That's important. Self-respecting, holding ideas that you can defend. It's very important that you understand yourself from your own perspectives. As a people, self-respecting with confidence in themselves, not as a people who refer to others for authentication. We are not here to be authenticated. That's important for me. That here was a man who refused authentication. that other people are cleverer than others on account of ethnicity, on account of race. That I don't believe. I will never believe. I've said, I do not subscribe to a God who allocates stupidity to a particular people on the basis of ethnicity or race. I don't believe that. But now, you look at our Africans, they don't see themselves as a center. They see themselves as a periphery. They see themselves in reference to other people. Hi, Kona. Who appointed other people and not us to be the reference point? So what we want, what I would want to be remembered for is, he refused. He refused until he went back. I always threw FM. Sky's Metro FM.
Yes.
We return. That's what we believe as Africans. So this one refused. That one I've refused. But it is important to attain that one. It just doesn't come nje. No. Things must be worked for. That is important. And so it's what I've done. I've tried to work very hard. But I look back, my father worked with the axe. Oh, he was good at that. Physical. But I can't do that now. I'm in a different environment, different times. I work with a pen. If it were yesterday, I think I was speaking to Reverend Tamasani, if I return, surely the laptop would have to be placed on the grave. And you will find this in many cultures. That's why I said, within Stonehenge, I find the African mind, because they had these grave items. Sometimes we call them funerary objects. Because they believed in this duality of being, that at one time, life, which is the spirit, would extricate itself from the body and embark on a journey. During that journey, it would require provisions. Sometimes it would be wine, sometimes it would be beer, sometimes it would be food. Sometimes, in some cultures, they would be, that spirit, if it was a royal spirit, accompanied by other people. So, bese kubulawa abanye abantu to accompany the king. Lokudla, provide food. Inkomo ibulawe, then that's food provision during the journey to another world, which ultimately translates to the star. That's what Africa believes, that ultimately we get to the star. Our souls are eternal. They may incarnate. We believe in incarnation, sometimes as a tree, sometimes as a snake, sometimes as some animal, but ultimately, after millions of years, we fly off. The bird takes us to the star. Those are the things that I've come to learn, and I've documented them. I think one thing that perhaps they will have to remember, forced to remember me for, is I've written lots of books, and I do not think I'm over and done with that. You never know. Yet at 70, that's when life begins. And the mind is very mature. You understand the world in a different way. And so there may still be more revelations, more maturing process, so that by the time I depart, fly off to somewhere else in a better place, where we are told the angels will be kissing us day and night, which is not a bad idea at all. And then, yeah, they will say, he went, he has gone, but something must remain. I think that's the measure of a man. What is it that remains when you are gone? what has gone is your soul. The soul goes somewhere, but in terms of life on earth, what is it that you have left behind? The legacy, the heritage. Have you been perhaps a cumbersome somebody, a burden on earth, or you tried to remove some of the burdens from Mother Earth, improved your community, improved the understanding of the people in your particular area, or you came, you saw, you were departed and left. Right.
No, thanks very much for your time, sir. We're speaking to Ubaba Pathisa Nyathi, and he was giving us an insight about his life. We know him as an award-winning author, historian, cultural heritage keeper, if I can use that word. But he gave us an insight into his life, how he grew up, what convictions he had when he grew up, and how they shaped his life. Now at the ripe age of 70, is we should remember there is a book that is going to publish about his life, that is going to be released in September. And I don't think this is the last book that he's going to write.
No, there are two coming. Biography of Joshua Nkomo, a very concise one, and an anthology of poems. They are in the making.
Thanks very much for your time. We shall see each other in the next edition.